Concern Universal is providing humanitarian relief to thousands of people in Malawi who are in urgent need of assistance following widespread flooding in the country. Malawi, one of the poorest countries in the world, was in January this year overwhelmed by days of torrential rains which resulted in massive flooding across the country, leaving over 200 people dead, many more recorded as missing, and displacing over 300,000 people. The floods have destroyed homes, roads and bridges, and washed away an estimated 70,000 hectares of cropland, threatening the food security of this tiny southern African country. The government of Malawi declared half of the country as a disaster zone. These are the worst floods in Malawi's recorded history, affecting over 1 million people. Concern Universal has been providing humanitarian aid to flood survivors across Malawi. Palombe is one district which has been severely affected by the floods. About 22,000 households are now living in 67 displacement camps scattered around the district. Concern Universal is leading the emergency response in this area and is supporting 13 displacement camps, reaching out to about 5,000 displaced families.
We're working with the District Council for Palombe, who are the coordinating agents for the whole program in the terms of the emergency. But also we have received some funding or resources from various agencies. We have received funding from UNICEF, which we are implementing in 10 camps in access to safe water and supplies. But also we have received funding from one foundation, but also support from Irish Aid, where they have provided us with non-food items. But also we have received support from Discover project, which is a sister project within Concern Universal, who have provided us with cook stoves, firewood, but also the solar bulbs, which people are using in the camps.
In its humanitarian response, Concern Universal is focusing on providing water and sanitation facilities in the camps, as well as distributing non-food items to improve health and prevent the outbreaks of disease. 5,000-liter water tanks have been strategically placed in all camps to supply clean water to meet the drinking, cooking and hygienic needs of displaced people. This means the flood victims, especially women and girls, will not have to travel long distances in search of water.
Timavutikira mazi kwambiri mene mazi angofika pamene patikatunga chochi sitimayendera kutali pokufuna kuti titunge mazi usiku timabwera kuzatunga nthawi nayo yonse timabwera kuzatunga ndi maziwa chimene chichi kutithandiza kwambiri popanda chimene chibwezi tikumavutika pajigona lili kutali.
Kuthawa kwathu tinathawa mu mphawi kufika malo ano. Tikafike malo ano tikasaukira mazi okumwa aliyonse mipepo yonse inakokoloka. Makubwera kwa mazi awa atithandiza nonga muzi wa kuno kuchitekesa kumagwa kolera nthawi iliyonse chifukwa chakwandikira nyanja pafupi. Ndipo bwera mazi awa atithandiza kwambiri ndi ana palibe so pakali pano wadwala kuti kolera kapena mwana kudwala iyayi.
With most of the clean water sources contaminated or destroyed by the floods, supplying water to the camps is the immediate option to support the displaced communities. Concern Universal is bringing in 50,000 liters of water a day to 10 camps, each receiving a ration of 5,000 liters. Concern Universal has also constructed toilets equipped with hand-washing stations to allow good hygiene and dignity for the flood victims. Concern Universal is also providing chemicals and tools to clean the toilets to reduce the risk of disease.
In terms of how we are trying to deal with the interventions, we have managed to train the health surveillance assistants in the area to brief them on the cholera preparedness, but also they are providing support to these camps in terms of health education messages.
Concern Universal has distributed energy-efficient stoves to 2,000 households in the displacement camps. Displaced people require fuel to cook, and the manner in which the fuel is obtained and used can have significant impacts on their lives, the surrounding community, and the natural environment. Even before the floods, firewood has always been scarce and very expensive in Palombe. Women and girls are exposed to risks of attack and sexual abuse as they search for firewood in isolated places. The use of the traditional 3-stone stove is unsustainable and requires a lot of wood. The energy-efficient stove uses 80% less fuel than the traditional methods, reducing the time and burden of collecting firewood by women and girls.
Mbawula zimene zimatithandiza kuphikira ifa tima nkhuni zochepa timaphikira zinthu zambirimbiri. Nyemba timatha kuphikira nkhuni zochepa, komanso nkhuni zomwe kuphikira sima. Pamene tikanakhala tikuphika pa mafuwa, tikanatha nkhuni zambirimbiri. Nkhuni zimene tikanatha kuphikira masiku 3 pa mafuwa, timatha kuphikira mulungu wathunthu kapena milungu 2. Sona kuti mbawula zimene zikutithandiza kwambiri kuti tiziteteza chilengedwe.
These cook stoves also have the potential to reduce the impact of health problems related to inhaling smoke. In any disaster, children are the most traumatized and require special attention. Concern Universal has helped establish nursery schools in the camps, helping children cope with the disaster.
Tilintiana pakampu panoso auchokera mabanja osiyana nde anawa anali ndi mantha kuona kuti samakhala mu mtendere wabwino kwa anaona zazikulu monga mazi mafloods anadzaza zinthu zinakokoloka anali ndi mantha nde anathuso samakhazikika malo amodzi amapezeka kuti akuswera muzithaphwi komanso anali ndi mantha kuopa kuti mwina mwake chichitikanso koma kunabwera Concern Universal nde atabwera Concern Universal mutabwera Concern Universal tinaona kuti anathu tidayamba kuwaika malo amodzi kuti mwina aiwale mantha amene anaona iwo ngozi ya mazi imene zinachitikira kugwa kwa manyumba ndiponso kusakazika kwa ziweto ndi minda kukokoloka. Nde panopo anawa akukhala malo amodzi kubwera kwa Concern Universal tikuwaphunzitsa tikukhala nawo kumacheza nawo inde tikumaphikira tiphala kuti mwina mwake aiwale zomwe iwo anaona yonse.
The camps are also home to school-going children, many of whom will be sitting their final examinations in June. Letitia Singano, 13 years old, is in Standard 8 and living at Chitekesa displacement camp. She will take her primary school leaving examination in June and hopes to make it to secondary school. The floods have disturbed her education. If children are educated, they may be able to break out of the cycle of poverty and live independent lives. With only a few weeks before their crucial final examinations, Letitia and the rest of the children affected by the floods will have to work harder to catch up with their friends. Concern Universal has installed solar-powered lamps in all the camps to help children with their studies. Special tents have also been reserved to act as study centers for the children.
Ngakhale tili kumatenti kuno tikukonzekera kuti tilembe mayeso amanebo pompano chaka chinochi. Ndiye ndi masola amene watu kumatha kuwerenga usiku monga ife ana standard 8 tikukonzekera kuti manebo amene akubwera mwina tingazasankhidweko secondary yabwino.
Ndiye no tilabwera pamalo pano pamachitika zinthu zosiyana-siyana. Ngakhale bezi machitika chonchopo timazunzika mavuto osiyana-siyana. Monga kusowa kwa nyali, kusowa kwa zinthu zina ndi zina. Komano Concern atabweretsa nyali zimene zizatithandiza kwambiri monga tineyo mwana wa school wokuti ndiso standard ndikukonzekera kulemba mayeso.
The smaller children can also play their favorite games at night. The installation of the solar-powered lamps has made the camps safer for families. Without adequate lighting in communal areas, the night can be dangerous for women and girls living in the camps.
Magesi amene akutithandiza kwambiri. Chifukwa kukakhala mdima ana athu amaopsezedwa kufuna kugwiriridwa. Koma amene pangobwera magesi amenewo akutithandiza ndipo anaso sayendaso moopaso kanthu ayi. Chifukwa pakukhala powala.
The installation of the solar-powered lamps and provision of efficient cooking stoves has not only improved the lives of the flood victims, it has also made their lives safer. Concern Universal is regularly sending its team to visit the camps and assess families' immediate needs and the impacts of its interventions. This helps displaced communities to interact and make suggestions on the best possible way they can be assisted. Malawi is suffering a humanitarian emergency, and the impact of these floods will be felt for months, if not years. Concern Universal is working with partners to help respond to the disaster and bring the situation to a resemblance of normality. Concern Universal continues to provide humanitarian aid to flood survivors across the country.
Yumbo, yumbo.